All right. So, yeah, I appreciate it, man, for everything. And to anyone who's watching this, I fuck with you. Especially, I'm gonna give a shout out to Kalai, who made me actually kind of believe in myself again. So yeah. All right, let's just get down to it.
So, ever since I started uploading the series Mayans Were Egyptians, I've had a lot of Mexicans leave me messages. And I wanted to take the time to explain to misinformed and uneducated, confused Mexicans who they really are. And I want to explain the true origins of the modern Mexican race. So, most people, when they think about the first explorers coming to the Americas, they envision white people such as Christopher Columbus. But most people are not aware of the fact that the Chinese came to the Americas over 70 years before the first white explorers ever showed up. From 1421 to 1423, Chinese explorer Zheng He came to the Americas with a fleet of 9 ships. Their ships were found in the Caribbean, and another one was also found in the Philippines. In fact, according to the Chinese records, it was Asians who created the first maps, later copied by white Europeans when they navigated the seas 72 years later. Nevertheless, the Chinese came to the Caribbean and parts of the Americas before white people showed up. So, this is the map used by Zheng He to navigate the world, and I want to read a little bit about the commentary on the map. He actually recorded the color of the people that were located in the Americas and in Australia. So he records on his map that the race of the people in America are black and red. He also records that the Aborigine people of Australia are black as well. So this paints a completely different picture than what we typically think of when we think of the first explorers arriving in the Americas. It's important to note that the Chinese people who came 600 years ago were all men. So they mingled with the indigenous black women, creating offspring in Mexico that have the male DNA of Chinese men and the female DNA of the indigenous black women. So in the 1800s, there were more waves of Chinese immigrants, hundreds of thousands of them settled in Cuba, thousands of them settled in Jamaica, Trinidad, Haiti, Dominican Republic. In Brazil, 2 million Brazilians now have Asian or Chinese DNA because of the Chinese settling in Brazil. In Peru, there are 1.3 million Chinese. A couple 100,000 Chinese live in Argentina. And then we can look at all of the Chinese who migrated and settled in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And when many people think about the invasion of the Americas, they think about white settlers. And they're leaving out a huge part of the equation, which is the Asian invasion and settlement of the Americas that took place first. And it all matters because the Asian, the Caucasian, and the Eurasian DNA has been widely spread throughout the Americas for the past 600 years. And now this Asian, Eurasian, and Caucasian DNA, even though we know that they come from Neanderthals, now they are all classified as the indigenous people of the Americas. So genetically, Mexicans are Chinese. And the so-called Native Americans of North America are actually Chinese and European, or basically what we would call Eurasian. And you'll notice that no matter where they are in North America, South America, the Caribbean, they all claim to be the indigenous people of the land, even though their DNA proves that they're European and Asian descent. So indigenous black Mexicans are still present in Mexico today but they're not recognized as the indigenous people of the land. Instead, it is the yellow-skinned Chinese race that is recognized and classified as the indigenous people of the land. And we can look at some of the structures that still exist today in Mexico that we can clearly see were built by the Moors. And not just these structures, even the most ancient structures, the pyramids, the step pyramids, these are Kushite structures. And there's a festival that takes place in Mexico where the Mexicans dress up like the Moors. So we know who the indigenous people are, but it's the yellow-skinned Asian race that is classified as the indigenous people of the Americas. And they've done the same thing in North America. We can look at how black the natives of North America were just a few hundred years ago. But today, black people in America are not classified as indigenous people to the land. They're classified as slaves who came in slave ships. And it is the yellow-skinned Asian that is classified as the indigenous people of North America. And the Chinese or Asian race has done the very same thing that their Caucasian brothers have done, setting themselves up all around the world and then dividing themselves into different groups, different classifications, giving themselves different names in different territories, even speaking different languages. But genetically, these people are all related. So in conclusion, modern-day Mexicans are genetically Chinese. And the yellow-skinned races that can be found in South America that are classified as the indigenous peoples of the America, they are not the indigenous people of the Americas. They are of Chinese descent, some of them being mixed with European and Chinese being Eurasian. And in order for black people to understand the totality of what has happened to them, they have to understand that it's not just about what white people have done to them. This is about what the white or the Caucasian, the Eurasian, and the Asian races collectively have done to black people all over the world. They have grafted themselves in, setting themselves up in our kingdoms, and then they try to erase all evidence of our existence. And then they rewrite history, classifying themselves as the indigenous people of the lands that they have invaded. And at the end of the day, the DNA doesn't lie. We know that the white races and the Asiatic races are Neanderthals. So the DNA proves that they are not indigenous to any land upon the earth because they come from the caves.